Is Texas football back? That is the question we ask ourselves yet again. A question that we tend to ask ourselves pretty much every offseason since 2009 when Texas played in the BCS championship game. Since then, it has not been great for Texas. One double-digit win season, one near Six Bowl victory, and no Big 12 titles. So, is Texas back? Well, every time we've asked ourselves that question, the answer has been no. And we're not truly going to know until they play actual football games this year and the next few years. But there's something happening at Texas that has never happened there before and hasn't happened to any program, as a matter of fact, in college football since they started tracking these high school recruits and rankings. Not only have you had transfer Quinn Ewers, now at Texas, former number one player in the country, quarterback out of the state of Texas, actually, former commit, decommits, goes to Ohio State for a year, transfers, now he's back at U of T. He's expected to be the starter this year, which is huge for the program. But not only that, you have number one player in the country, now current Texas commit, Arch Manning, in the 2023 class. We've only seen 3 quarterbacks reside as the number one player in the class. Vince Young, obviously he won a national championship at Texas. Quinn Ewers, who's currently their quarterback now, and future quarterback Arch Manning. So that is absolutely monumental for any program. I mean, the fact that you would go from one elite quarterback to the next has to be talked about because that puts the rest of college football on notice. Now, I'll start by saying anything can happen tomorrow, right? Like Arch Manning could decommit, who knows? But as of today, I think that we can build an argument that you have a lot of reasons to be excited if you're a Texas fan. Now, you're probably one of 2 people if you're watching this video. One, you're a Texas fan and you just love hearing about why Texas is going to be good again. Or 2, you hate Texas and you want to argue in the comments about why Texas sucks and they'll continue to suck. Now, the last time we saw them play football, they did kind of suck. So I understand that. They went 5-7 this past season. First year under Steve Sarkisian. I understand. But hear me out. Moving forward, let's set a few parameters. 1, what does it mean for Texas to be back? I don't think they have to win national championships. Doing that in today's college football, it's even harder, I think, today than it used to be. But winning double-digit games, competing for Big 12 titles, maybe sneaking into the playoff every once in a while, we have to remember that Texas is going to be going to the SEC soon. So that changes things a little bit, but that does matter. So with that in mind, that idea in mind, yeah, I think the future is bright for Texas football, and I want to tell you why. Obviously, the Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning thing is monumental. You look at the previous, like the last 20 years of number one quarterbacks in the class, and again, there's only been 3 that were the number one player on top of it. But just looking at the number one quarterback, you've got some dogs like Trevor Lawrence, Jameis Winston, Matthew Stafford, obviously Vince Young, Bryce Young, Terrell Pryor. Josh Rosen was the top quarterback in his class. He ends up playing really well at UCLA. He was a very good quarterback. He just didn't have much around him. So you have some great players, but you also have some not so great players. Jimmy Clausen, Jeff Driscoll, a couple guys like Davis Mills, Shea Patterson, never lived up to the hype. Matt Barkley was all right. So just because you are the top quarterback in your class, obviously doesn't guarantee success. What we're trying to do, though, is establish likelihood and probability. And moving forward, the fact that you have not 1 but 2 of the top quarterbacks in their respected classes, both number 1 players in your class, that is big for Texas. If you ask me, in terms of probability, one of those 2 guys is probably going to be a stud. In fact, it's more likely that both of them are than neither of them are. So you start to look at the situation that these quarterbacks are in, and it's a favorable situation. Like, Texas is a ridiculously talented program. You look at by year their recruiting rankings as of late. They had the 3rd ranked class in 2019, the 9th ranked class in 2020, the 15th ranked class in 2021, 5th ranked class in 2022. Now you're looking at Steve Sarkisian. Currently, they're the 3rd ranked class in 2023. And it's worth noting that they currently are the favorites to add a couple of top 50 offensive playmakers in Jonte Cook and Baxter Jr. So obviously they're a really well-recruited program. Now, they were a very well-recruited program under Tom Herman, and all he did was win bowl games. Won 4 straight bowl games. But it's those regular season games that matter too, right? And that's what he had a real problem with. So offensively and defensively, they're recruiting really well at Texas. That bodes well for Ewers and Manning. When you're looking at this season, the transfer portal's been good for them. Brought in wide receivers like Isaiah Nair, Ajay Hall, Jaleel Billingsley from Alabama at tight end, Ryan Watts at corner from Ohio State. Like, they really utilized the transfer portal effectively for this season. Their roster for this year is very talented. You have Bijan Robinson, one of the top running backs in the country. Xavier Worthy, one of the top wide receivers last year as a freshman. You have a couple of studs on defense like Luke Brockermeyer, Demarvion Overshown. It's going to come together around Quinn Ewers. In a couple of years, he, in theory, will be handing the torch off to Arch Manning. Like, both for this year and moving forward, the program is in a good position. Steve Sarkisian, offensive-minded coach. We saw him coach incredibly talented offenses at Alabama. Now he's trying to do it at Texas. They've got the talent pool in the state of Texas to pull from. That's an issue they've had, is keeping that talent in state. But when you've got quarterbacks like, Quinn and Arch Manning, it becomes a lot easier. So this year becomes proof of concept. Like, that's what he's trying to do this season, Steve Sarkisian, is show that they can win football games. If you think about it, if they go from 5 wins last season to 9 or 10 this season, just think about the hype that they're going to have for the following year when Quinn Ewers is a junior. Arch Manning is going to be on campus. Like, they're going to be further into these really talented recruiting cycles or classes that Steve Sarkisian is bringing in. So, yeah, he had a bad first year at Texas, admittedly, and don't hear what I'm not saying, but like Nick Saban had a rough first year. Dabo Swinney had a rough first year. You can even go back to Mack Brown in his first season at Texas. Like, your first year at a program does not dictate the rest of your seasons at a program. I'm not saying that's what Steve Sarkisian is going to turn into, but the way I see it, moving forward, Texas is in a really good position to become successful. Now, it gets a little confusing when you talk about them going over to the SEC, because now you're talking about a juggernaut of a conference going over there with Oklahoma. Obviously, then you're dealing with Alabama and Texas A&M and Georgia. But where things stand right now, I think Texas is going to drastically improve from where they've been the last 10 seasons. Do I think they're going to be winning national championships? Probably not. But I see the vision. I see what they're going for. And I do think that it's going to be really difficult at this point for them to not have a very good next 3 or 4 years. Again, I can't predict the future. Anything can happen moving forward. But just be aware of the fact that, like, I get it. There's a lot of Texas haters out there. Totally understand that. But if you kind of take off those sunglasses of hatred for U of T and you just start to look at the facts of, like, they, in theory, have an incredibly talented roster, bare minimum, a decent coaching staff, and now a pair of phenomenal quarterbacks that are going to lead the way for them. Oklahoma's going through a transitional phase. Oklahoma State is decent. Baylor has to reload. Like, when you're looking at not just this year, but moving forward, it is possible for Texas to become a contender in the Big 12 again. Remember, just 11 or 12 years ago, Texas was playing in a national championship game. So it's not unrealistic to say that Texas can get back to those heights. I'm not saying that's what they're going to do. I'm telling you, I think they're going to become a legit contender in the Big 12 and then potentially the SEC as well. But they got to play the football games, right? Like, that's what matters most, is they have to get on the field and play the games. So time will tell with that. I wanted to get it out there, talk about my feelings about Texas, kind of dive a little bit into that program, and tell you that they're one of my favorite schools for this year to improve. I really think that they're going to go from 5 to potentially that 10-win range this season. And moving forward, I think the future is really bright for them. Thank you for listening, everybody. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And let me know how you feel about Texas in the comments. Do you think that they're going to be a legit contender one day? Or do you think that it'll just be the same as it has been the last 10 years? Same as it was under Tom Herman with, they had all the talent, but they didn't get the wins. So let me know in the comments how you feel about them. I got other teams I'm going to be talking about this offseason, their expectations for this year, moving forward. So again, please give me your thoughts on Texas in the comments. Has this information changed your perspective on them at all? Appreciate you guys listening and have a good one.